When do leaders need a script? And of course, some people might now say, excuse me, leaders should be able to speak without a script. On the one hand, true. On the other hand, you probably know these moments when leaders suddenly speak without script and you wonder, maybe a better idea to give that person a script because everything now goes downhill from here. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We had an international occurrence of this where I received lots of emails about people asking me to address this matter. Greetings from London here, by the way. This is not the rising sun behind me, it's just the light in the room I'm at the moment. So when you're now listening on, we are going to talk about when do leaders need a script and what happens when they go off the script. Very important here is when you're watching me on YouTube, I'm going to show you original press articles under Fair Deal, Fair Use Act. I'm allowed to show them in the UK and the US and under Zitierrecht, Urheberrecht in Germany, in Europe. So you will be on the safe side watching this and I'm on the safe side showing them. So very important here is why do some people need a script? And you could always claim, shouldn't people be able to address target audiences by themselves? Anything else just fake. Could be. On the other hand, when you say it's fake but it works, not really great. I agree because not really authentic. However, when you say the person goes off script and everything goes downhill from here, it's getting worse by the minute. And of course, the first question is, what is the reason why some people are so unable to address target audiences properly? And the number one reason first is their social upbringing. Depending on where you come from, usually you learn a certain way how to express yourself. And I do not mean the language you speak. I do not mean the English language I'm speaking right here. I mean the way you speak the language. I grew up in a family of public servants, all of them teachers basically. And that means that education is important and they teach you properly how to articulate yourself. However, when I wanted to have my first personal computer, my father told me go get a job besides your studies or your school because I'm not going to pay for that one. So I was doing the paper rounds in our town and also I was working in a factory building at the age of 14 in a three-shift system. And then you realize very quickly that they speak a different language and you adapt to that language. However, when you now grew up in a family which is privileged and wealthy enough that they say, our son, our daughter, anyone in this family is not going to work in these kind of circumstances because we don't want them to do. We just give them the money. You will never learn how these people speak, how they express themselves. You will simply miss out on that. And when you then try to copy it afterwards, people will immediately see that this is not working. You can, as hard as you want to, you can try to make Jacob Rees-Mogg try to be the bloke in the pub around the corner. He will never be. So the upbringing is the number one reason. And on top of that is the knowledge. Sometimes you know what's moving in the heads of your target audiences, what is driving them, what are their motivations, what are their worries and sorrows. And sometimes you simply don't. And on top of that is also a question of skill. Usually people should be very well skilled when it comes to presenting and rhetorics, especially as leaders. However, many of them are not because many people are so absorbed and obsessed by themselves that they simply think, I just speak the way I do, and I think I'm good with people, and I just keep going. The main question now, of course, is when you wonder what is the case, what happened, why we're going to talk about this. Because I told you in the beginning, there is an international case, and the international case is Friedrich Merz, the German chancellor. And it's just fair because we're talking about the political aspect here that I put my own biases forward. Anything else will be not really a good thing. I am a self-employed entrepreneur, so you will not be surprised that I'm a liberal. Very important for our American listeners, not libertarian. The European liberal, something completely different. It means to put it into very, very short words, a bit too short actually, it means less regulation, lower taxation, less state, but anyone should be protected still in a social circumstance and a working social system. That is European liberalism in general. I tend from liberal to be a bit conservative there. That's also not surprising as an entrepreneur. However, I think that both of these parties, liberals and conservatives, did lots of mistakes in the past. So I'm not one of these boneheaded people who will defend everything they do, especially not here. Especially not here. So what happened was the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz flew over to the COP30, the climate conference, and that was in Brazil this year. And when he flew back, he was interviewed, and the interview went the following. He said, look, when I asked people when we were about to fly back, I asked them, does anyone want to stay here? And guess what? Not a single hand went up. They were all pretty happy that they could leave the place where we are right now. Amazing. Amazing. You fly to Brazil, right into the Amazonian forest, and you have nothing better to do than when you leave to tell people what kind of bad tell this nation to tell them what kind of bad hole this actually is. And then you wonder afterwards that people aren't too happy about this. Who could have thought? Who could have thought? You know, sometimes there are just moments where I think, why do I have to address this in a podcast? This is international politics on highest level, and you wonder how can this happen? So this was, of course, a major outcry. Not only the English-speaking press picked it up. I'm going to show on the YouTube channel. When you're watching on YouTube, you see this right now, also from the Swiss media. So it was really picked up internationally, not only in German press but global press. And this is not the only case where Friedrich Merz derailed when he spoke off script. So Brazil was only one case. The other one which we had was in Germany, at a certain point in time, when the Pride movement begins, the Pride month begins, there was a rainbow flag on top of the German Bundestag, which is the German parliament. And under conservative rulership under him, this was stopped. And when he was asked, because that caused huge outrage, even amongst people who have nothing to do with the LGBTQI plus community, they said it's not the right sign we should send at the moment. And in a talk show, Friedrich Merz sat down and said, yeah, you know, the German parliament's not a circus tent. Yeah, why not? Why not compare diversity to a circus? That's your take on it? That's your take? And I can tell you there are many reasons why you could say, yes, there should be a rainbow flag for a month on the German parliament, or for a week, or for a day. And also you could say there shouldn't be. And then we can discuss yes or no. I'm not going to discuss that right here, right now. However, you definitely do not compare diversity with a circus, because circus is entertainment and diversity is you can either live to the fullest who you are, or you get persecuted for who you are, which is still the case. And by the way, the majority of countries on this planet. I am part of the LGBTQI plus community myself, and I can tell you when other people talk about where they go for vacation, I can look on the world map and said, half of these countries, not for me, probably. So you see, the circus issue was the second one. And then the most famous one, which many people remember from his campaigning times, he was sitting in a talk show and he was aggressively going against the talk show host and say, look. Don't make me look like one of these millionaires who are out of touch with reality. I am not one of them. So then the talk show host asked him, okay, Mr. Merz, as someone who is a former legal professional at BlackRock, one of the leading investment companies globally, and with your millions that you actually made in income, the way that you live in your house, including having two small planes, which you own privately. Where would you put yourself in the social system in the country? And he said, upper middle class. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, sure. Because we all know that upper middle class, the upper middle class does not have issues with parking space, right? The real issues are, where do I put my plane? Oh, sorry. Where do I put my two planes? These are the real issues that the upper middle class has. So absolutely no perception where he is in society. And it's really important that this kind of thing keeps going and going and going. Some people, especially opposition parties, say it's the gift that keeps on giving. And his own party, in any party in coalition, always wonders, are we going to have one day where he does not derail somewhere on live TV, live radio, on the internet, or anywhere else? We had a couple of other things which he said about immigration and how immigration now changed, how the city landscape changed. The whole Stadtbild, which means city picture if you translate it literally. But basically, he said foreigners are not great for a city. And that, of course, is also completely unacceptable. And now he says he meant something different. And then he said, oh, you should talk to your girls when you have daughters and they will tell you. So it went worse from one step to the other. And you wonder, how can someone who's a legal professional, who should be able to express themselves properly, be so bad at it? Because let's face it, when you have one leader, only one, let's say you have 100 leaders in your organization, and one leader derails on national press, it harms absolutely anyone in your organization and the organization itself, including the employer brand, maybe the stock price when that's relevant for your organization, absolutely anyone, your products, anything. So how do we now implement anything which hopefully delivers a value contribution where things actually become better? So step number one always is you need to create awareness. And that usually means they need professional coaching. They need someone who helps them to reflect that what they do at the moment is not great. That kind of awareness needs to be there first. When people simply think, I'm successful, I have a career, and because I have a career, I'm right. When you have these kind of people in your organization, I wish you all the best of luck. You need even more work on their awareness. On top of that, you need to upskill them. You need to give them tools that when they get caught off guard, they have certain tools which they can use. And that is something which you can learn professionally with communication, conflict management, rhetorics. There are lots of people out there that can help you as well if you want to, but that's not the deal here. That's not the point here. You need to upskill the people that they are able to spontaneously react without every single time when they say something, you're sitting there with a communications team and they think, oh God, that was my weekend again. Here we go. It's another night shift to just get all the broken porcelain together. So because people will burn out when you do that. Sooner or later, people will leave your comms, your professional communication team, because they simply say every single day you get out of bed, you just hope that this person doesn't open their mouth at all anywhere live on radio, TV, or the internet. Upskilling needs to happen. However, you always need to make a choice. Do you want to have someone upskill to a level that they completely can freely speak somewhere, which, for example, Warren Buffett still says that his rhetorics class was pretty much life-changing, and he can speak freely ever since? Or you want to have someone who is more script-driven? And some politicians, some leaders go that way, which makes the answers a bit stiff, not too authentic, but at least it works. However, when you have too many one-liners and you only give people one-liners, then you have something, for example, that Theresa May, as a former prime minister, had, where every single question basically was answered by one of the one-liners they gave her. One-liners like, Brexit means Brexit. If you now wonder what does that mean, no one knows. No one knows, except that Brexit is a massive catastrophe. I'm now in London. I can tell you live and in color what's going on here for the vast majority of people. It's not great. So the choice is there that you say either upskill someone to a point that they can speak freely, completely, anywhere, at any point, which of course takes a bit longer, or you say, hey, we give you the basic material so you can use that in case of emergency, but usually as soon as you hear a certain topic, these are the 500 answers you need to know, and then you twist them a bit so they do not sound too rehearsed. That is very important here. When you do it the way we discussed right here, then leaders who probably aren't that great rhetorically will do way better, and when they go off script, they still do it well. And I wish you all the best implementing that in your organization. And when you now say, I think I'd like to discuss a couple of things here, feel free to do so. So first, when you watch me on YouTube, feel free to leave a like here, subscribe to my channel. Feel free to comment and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, 5 stars. Thank you very much for that. And recommend this channel, the Videocast, the podcast, to your friends, colleagues, anyone you know. Thank you very much for doing so as well. By the way, one thing we only have on YouTube, the YouTube Shorts, our leadership tips, couple of videos every week with actual leadership tips, short videos, 60 seconds or less. So it pays off when you subscribe to my YouTube channel to put the little bell in there so you get a tiny notification when something new is coming up. And of course, you can also follow me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or go to my website, nb-networks.biz, and then you see what I do for a living. When you now say, hey, I'd like to discuss something, but not in the comment section, it's just too specific, I don't want to have that in public, feel free to send me an email, nb@nb-networks.com. When you want to send me an email about something very specific that you say we need training, speaking, coaching, consulting, mentoring, project interim management, feel free to do so as well. But we can also just discuss your questions or aspects that you have, and then we just take it from there. If you think, are there any live sessions? Yeah, they are. We have live sessions a couple of times per year, actually once per month at least. When you go to expert.nb-networks.com, you can sign up to our leadership letter, because we only communicate these dates and times in the leadership letter. So when you go in there, you sign up, you only receive one email every Wednesday morning. It's 100% content, ad-free guarantee, no worries. It's a full access to all the articles, no paywall. Otherwise, in other places you find paywalls, not there. Full access to all the podcasts, no paywall as well. And then there's the date, the time, and the link to access our next live session. We're going to have one reasonably soon, so I'm looking forward to seeing you there for live sessions. And of course, if you have international colleagues, everything I have is available in the English, but also in the German language. You can, of course, also just connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram, like me on Facebook, and of course, connect with me and subscribe to my channel on YouTube. However, the most important thing is, by the way, when you send me any kind of message, no worries, I answer every single message within 24 hours, so you have a guarantee that I get back to you very quickly. However, the most important thing is always the last thing I say: apply what you heard on this podcast, because only when you apply what you heard, then you will see the positive aspects that you obviously want to see in your organization. I wish you all the best doing so. Feel free to contact me anytime, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours or less. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And at the end of this podcast, as well as the end of this videocast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much. for your time.